Hey everyone, Kyle with Andrew Hilton Wine and Spirits here with something a little bit different. We've got some Central Alberta beers, and huge thanks to Morgan for driving all over Central Alberta, getting us, well, 3 out of 4 super exclusive local things that we couldn't get otherwise. One of them we actually already had when she bought it, but 3 out of 4, 75%, A for effort. But no, we've got some really crazy different stuff that we don't normally get access down here to. And of course, all of these share one thing in common. They're all coming from Red Shed Maltings, which is where Morgan works these days. And of course, you're all familiar with Morgan, friend of the channel. She's done a lot of tastings with us in the past, but she's got a new gig. She's with the Red Shed Maltings now. So she is joining us from Central Alberta, along with Matt Hamill, also from Red Shed Maltings. And they're going to be walking us through some really cool beers tonight. So when I introduce them, our beer number 1 is going to be the Foedered Lager, Bohemian Pils by Blindman. Hello, Morgan and Matt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Kyle.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I promise all of you that Matt's internet connection now is way better than it was 10 minutes ago, but it's still not great. Rather than working on 1995 dial-up, he's now on about 2002 dial-up, so it's a substantial step up, but it's still not great. Let's talk a little bit about Red Shed Maltings. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you hosting tonight's tasting?
Yeah, you bet. So I'm Matt Hamill. I'm one of the owners of Red Shed. So it's myself, my brother, his wife Daylin, my mom and dad, John and Sue. And we have a small malt house where we really focus on specialty malts. So some of the malts that add the aromas and flavors that make more beer styles possible out of Canadian ingredients.
Cool. So now when we talk about making a beer, we're familiar with water, we're familiar with, yeast and hops. We've talked to absolutely ad nauseum about hops. But let's talk a little bit about, the malt side, because there's the malt that's contributing the alcohol, and then usually there's the malt that's contributing all the flavor, and in a lot of cases they're very different things. Do you want to walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So as you alluded to, the base malt is typically what is providing the sugars that get turned into alcohol. Whereas with our processing, we can control it with different time at different temperatures. So we're not adding any outside flavors at all. But just by manipulating the temperature, we can get like a breakfast cereal, cracker, home cooking, some nutty flavors, some chocolate flavors, some coffee flavors, all sorts of stuff.
So what do you mean by home cooking?
So
What's that flavor profile?
that's like fresh cookies out of grandma's oven.
Oh, I like that.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, just flour-based product. Yeah.
No, so you're doing this for Alberta craft breweries. Now you're doing this for breweries probably all across Canada, certainly all across Alberta, but you're based up in Central Alberta. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you are and what drove you to start in that location? No. Apparently, no one had my audio for my really great question where I rubbed my hand together. Yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. Now it says lost sound. Awesome. Yeah. Yep. Have they lost sound on all of it or just me? Just me. Okay. It's fine. The question I had was, you mentioned that you opened right when Blindman and Trouble Monk and Dandy were getting going. Was that deliberate? Was it something that you kind of saw the market booming and you were just ready to jump in, or was this we were starting at Maltings anyway and then this happened and we're like, oh, good. They can hear me. Can they hear everyone else? They can only hear me. Just, I'll ask you guys to bear with us for a moment. We just found out that no one can hear you, so no one can hear anyone apparently. So, well, they can hear me now, but.
Oh, it definitely Okay, there's gonna be a brief interruption. We'll be fine. We'll be right back.
We're gonna be right back.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to talk a little bit about. I don't know how much at this point. Let's back this up a little bit. Aaron has finally got his brand new mobile laptop rig, which he's been talking about for like 3 months going. We're very proud of Aaron. He's got it all running mostly right. So first day with the new rig, we things are 90% on board. We have video. Video is good. We're back. We have guest audio too? We do. Morgan, can we test that? Do we have guest audio? Do we have guest audio too? We do. Morgan, can we test that? Do we have guest audio?
Hi, friends.
Yay.
Hopefully. Okay, I can.
Hello.
I've been able to hear both of them the whole time, so they're back. All right. So maybe let's just start this over a little. So, oh, we lost guest video. So they're good. Okay, we're just gonna keep going. All right. Apparently, we're gonna keep going. Not a fan of the laptop. The laptop's not allowed on the premises ever again. So let's try this again. I'm so sorry, Matt and Morgan. This was not how we normally do things. We have a new video rig tonight, and it's not gone great.
No problem.
Okay, so Redshed Maltings, thank you to both of you for joining us. We've already asked some fairly interesting questions, which you've already answered, but let's maybe refresh a little bit of that now. So thank you, Morgan Rattray. Thank you, Matt Hamill, for joining us. Matt, why don't you reintroduce Redshed, who you are, what you do, and why it's important to the brewing process.
All right, absolutely. so I'm a little bit of feedback on mine as well. I can hear my own voice, which is going to cause some echo.
It's better if you use headphones, but yeah, you're going to get a little bit of a loop. It happens to me too. I get it in mine. You eventually learn to tune it out.
Oh, he's getting.
Sounds good. All right, Matt Hamill from Redshed Malting. I'm one of the owners, along with the rest of the immediate family here. And so we are a small-scale malt house in central Alberta, where we focus on specialty malts, the malts that add flavor and aroma to the wide range of beers that Alberta brewers are producing now. We've been going for, I think, 6 years or so. Started up around the same time as Monk, which are a couple of the beers that we're tasting here today. And yeah, so it's super excited to be here and super excited to try some beers with you guys.
Beautiful. Now we are starting with the Blindman Foedered Bohemian Pils here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your malt contributes to this? And Morgan, do you want to talk a little bit about the beer in general? Let's start with you though, Matt.
Sure. So in lots of the Blindman Foedered beers, you're gonna encounter some of our rocky malt. And so it's a nice malt that's gonna add a little bit more depth of flavor without impacting the color very much. So as you cannot get a more generic adjective for this, but it will make a maltier beer. So just kind of what people
Oh man, I
expect
can
for
really
that,
taste the beeriness.
barley
Yes.
flavor in there.
Yeah. So okay, when you say a malty, sorry, I was being very facetious, but when you say a malty flavor, walk us through it. Like, I know that malt means just the malted barley. Is it a cereal grain character? Is it the fruit? Is it a little of both? Where do you define maltiness as a maltster?
Yeah, and so it's just kind of making sure that the flavor that's coming through is what the consumer is expecting or what they have in their mind, as green, as barley, as malt. So it's when you're out there harvesting it and you get some barley dust in your throat. It's got a little bit of that to it, but in a much more pleasant form.
I love it. Brian, why don't you walk us through the Blindman Foedered lager here? Although you can't actually drink it tonight, which is a tragedy for you.
Hey everyone. Yes, so I broke my thumb and I'm on antibiotics, so I can't drink, but I am here to talk about it. Here's my cool injury. Yeah.
Okay, but how did it happen?
So
That's what everybody's going to want to know. How did it happen?
I was moving a couch and it got stuck between a railing and a couch. That's it. Yeah. I live a very exciting life, lit as the kids would say.
Yes, so very lit.
Okay, so the beer that you're drinking is part of the Foedered Lager series from Blindman. Essentially for this, they wanted to replicate a Czech Pils as best as they could. So I don't know exactly how they've done it, but they found the softest water possible. And then they love to use local malt in as many beers as possible. So it is red shed malt in there. And then I think there's a Pilsner malt, and it doesn't say anything else is in there. So potentially there are other things, not entirely sure. The Foeders that they're using are white oak. So potentially there's a small oak character. Without tasting the beer, it's really hard to know. In a Pilsner, I wouldn't expect there to be a lot coming through, but probably a little bit of, really? Ooh.
Yeah, just a little. I'd say there's like a very light vanilla. It's more of a tannic thing than anything else. I think it's pulling tannin from the wood more than it is flavor. But I'm definitely getting that that back to the throat dryness. That's not the hops. It has to be tannin.
Neat. And then I would also expect in a Czech Pils a slight pepper, maybe a lemon or really light citrus character. Nothing too upfront on the palate. We want it crisp, clean, refreshing. Dry finish. Sounds like we have that. Good.
I think you're right on with that, considering you're not drinking it. But yeah, lemon into pepper, particularly white pepper. I get that really nice cheesy earthiness from noble hops right through the mid-mouth. I get a nice long finish on it, and the really nice thing is it's so dry. I'm so very done with overly sweet beers. Like, don't get me wrong, if it's minus 40 and somebody's making like a dessert oatmeal stout at 10.5%, yes, please, 2 with a scoop of ice cream in it. But no, I mean, this weather, I don't want anything remotely sweet, and the fact this is so bone dry is beautiful. I really like how clean and dry and fresh this is.
They make great beer.
And I mean, I don't know if it was one of the pieces of video that we actually caught, but Matt kind of talked about Blindman being part of the first wave. Well, it's the first wave of the good wave. We certainly had waves before. Waves of questionable quality, big rock waves, and let's not get into it. But yeah, we've certainly had waves before, but they were the very tip of the good beer iceberg for this last round. And yeah, I don't think anyone really can complain about Blindman. I don't think we'd have anywhere near the standard of craft beer in Alberta that we have now without Blindman just setting that bar so damn high and saying, your move, everybody, try to catch up. And I love that they just set the bar that high. Alberta owes them a great debt for that. Eric asks, is foedering a lager a historical thing? Good question. I know that lagering as a process of aging beer is as old as, lagers are, quite literally. And again, before stainless steel and plastic, they would have had to age it in oak Were they necessarily aged in open-top foeders? I honestly can't say. I don't think they would have been, because that would have introduced wild ale yeast that would have outcompeted the lager yeast, which is quite slow and fermented as an ale before the lager yeast could get going. So I would suspect open-top fermenters.
I didn't do that.
You didn't do that.
I didn't.
You did that.
I did not.
Oh wow, that's
I have other problems that
Look at this
I'm gonna
thing.
do.
Oh wow. I don't even know what Aaron did here.
That's not.
That is entirely Aaron.
I don't mind it though.
I'm okay with it.
Brand, but it's not me.
Yep, I'm okay with this. Wow, that's completely derailed my answer. All right. No, very short answer. I don't think they used open-top fermenters because wild ale yeast would get in, and it would outcompete the lager yeast and make it an ale. They definitely would have done pilsners and lagers in oak. Certainly, yes, because stainless steel and concrete and plastic are fairly new. Can we move on to the next beer, please? And now apparently also Morgan on the second line.
I don't know who did that.
I feel like I'm in a music video for White Denim. It's a bit of an obscure reference, but go look them up after. And
Yeah, White Denim.
it's turned into a fever dream of amazing proportions. So this is Aaron's new laptop, everyone. I assume he's very proud of it.
Got nothing to do with me.
I wouldn't be proud of it.
Got nothing to do with me.
And the sound issues.
Some of the problems have a lot to do with me. But this whole Badlands sitch, this is not my thing.
Well, this has gotten horribly derailed. All right. Let's talk about Red Hart Brewing while we try to keep this thing on the rails a little bit. All right. I'm so sorry. Red Hart Brewing, not a brewery I've ever had before. This is my first experience with them. Morgan, you actually went to this brewery for us. I'd never heard of them. I'd never had anything from them. Let's talk about Red Hart. Morgan, why don't you do the introduction on this one?
Hello. Welcome to Red Hart. So Red Hart is located right on the south side of Red Deer. They're a beautiful brewery. They opened in 2019. And if you are in the area, I would highly recommend stopping in and saying hi. One of my favorites is they do Berliner Weiss at the brewery, and they actually do it the traditional way with not Woodruff syrup. It's kind of weird, but they have lemon, and they just bought a slushy machine, which I have not tried, but I am highly interested in. Just curious, I want to see what's happening. Now, I think they're excellent. I also know them. So, once you have that personal relationship, I think I'm a little biased. But you should be paying attention because in the Alberta Beer Awards at the 2020 edition, which was judged, I think, just before everything shut down, and then awards were a virtual ceremony, they actually tied for best new brewery of the year, which is pretty exciting. And one of their beers won a gold award. It was a hoppy Kveik beer, and they won a silver for an Irish red. So they're doing good things. They're starting to get noticed. I think if you have the opportunity to do an Alberta staycation, they'd be a great visit. Lots of interesting things coming out of there. And the Alberta Pale Ale that you're drinking is hopefully delicious. And I was just trying to figure out exactly what malt is in it. Oh, sorry, Matt told me, amber. This is our amber malt, so one of our specialty roasted.
Beautiful. So Matt, do you want to tell me a little bit about that malt in particular and what it's contributing to this beer? And also, Eric, I see your comment about this being a dedicated blooper reel. I absolutely promise you that what you folks are seeing at home is nowhere near as weird as what I'm seeing in the monitor that I'm looking at. It's magnificent what I can see. It's really something. Matt, go ahead and tell us about the malt that's being used in this one.
I believe it. Our amber malt is really something that's pretty interesting, and it's going to come through in a lot of different ways in a lot of different beers. So it's one of the ones where it's going to have similar notes to our biscuit quite often. But then if you can, some of the brewers are able to pull some nutty flavors out of it or pistachio flavors out of it. So some really cool things going on with it. It's a great beer for adding just a little bit of color, a little bit more depth of flavor, and you'll find it in just a ton of different beer styles.
So you mentioned Biscuit Malt. Now, to me, as like a non-maltster, like I was a home brewer for a little while, but I look at things like, some of the crystal malts and Biscuit Malt and honey malt and amber malt, and they all seem like much of a muchness. How do you differentiate those, and what do they do that are slightly different? And I can't even imagine what you're all seeing on your screens. But yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit? Like, it seems very shades of gray with like some of the crystallized malts. And Aaron, I am serving that laptop a like trespass notice. It's not allowed on the premises ever again.
Yeah, so it is definitely a malt that there at this like color range. There's just a ton of options that brewers have to go with. A lot of them are picking the red shed amber malt. One super simple reason is it's always getting to them fresher. So other options for amber malts are getting imported from Wisconsin or from the UK or from Germany, as are the crystal malts in the same color range. So if you want something that's in this wheelhouse, you want to be really fresh. That's why people turn to us. And we're not trying to imitate those other malts. We're trying to do our own thing, and certainly getting a nice flavor off of it that we enjoy.
So Eric has a question here. So do breweries, say, hey Matt, we need amber malt, or are they more, hey, we're brewing, what do you have available? Or is it a little bit of both? Do they consult with you and say, we're trying to make this style, what would work with this? Do you have some input on recipes with brewers?
A limited amount, and so the closer relationship we have with the brewers, then we might get into that a little bit more. So we do have our standard products, and lots of brewers. A lot of the breweries that are out there came up from the home brewing world, and so they're used to our malts from there and have developed recipes with it that way. There have been a few instances where brewers have said, hey, we like this, but we want it to be a little bit darker, or we want a little bit more of this characteristic out of it. What can you do? And so we'll work with them on that. Blindman is a great example of that. We do a darker chocolate malt for them that they use in their Trip Hammer Porter.
Beautiful. Now, Aaron has suggested that all of this Skype madness might be mildly Morgan's fault.
No.
Morgan might be sitting here with a bit of a smirk this whole time.
Yeah, this is a whodunit.
Yeah, this is very much a whodunit. Who
whodunit.
pushed the big red button that ruined everything? and Aaron has named you, Morgan, in the drawing room with the candlestick as having done it. With your giant weird thumb.
It is weird. It's so big.
Oh, this is going to be, I think Eric's right. This is just one big blooper reel.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Morgan and I had lunch last Tuesday when she dropped off the beers with us to do this event. And she mentioned something really interesting that I wanted to talk about. Because I was going to talk about this later, but there's so much to talk about with the craft beer Commonwealth as a story. I wanted to cover it now. And that's the really high bar that you folks have as like a quality cutoff, Matt. Like, it's not, oh, well, barley's barley, and then you malt it for beer. You have like an incredibly high bar for what you settle for barley. Like, it's not a question of settling. You're very, very picky. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you source your barley and the growers you work with and just how picky you are? Because it sounds like you're bloody picky.
You bet. So I'll answer the question, and then when I'm done, I'm going to go grab that beer too, because it's that one's still in the fridge here. But just to go from a wider scope on this, about 20% of the barley grown in Canada will actually meet general malt specifications. So that's where any maltster would be willing to pick it up. And some of the characteristics that will push it out of malt spec are too high of protein or too low of protein, or not enough of some of the enzymes that are key for the brewing process, like alpha amylase. And then also it has to be harvested at just the right time. For example, in our farm, we swath all the barley first. So we take it from a standing field and we cut it into nice, pretty rows. So that's the swathing process, and then we let it dry down in the swath for a few days. But those are some risky days, because if it gets rained on while it's in the swath, that's going to initiate the malting process a little bit. So it's going to start to sprout a little bit right in the field. And barley only wants to grow once. So once it's sprouted a little bit, then it's very, very hard to make malt with it. So in general, it's hard to make malt barley. And then now to dial it in onto our farm a little bit, we get to be, because we're so tightly connected to Hamel Farms, we get to, be a little bit pickier on what barley varieties are being used, on some of the farming practices that are employed, what it's getting combined at, like what dryness or the moisture that's left in there. And on the farm, we expect to produce about 1,500 tons of malt quality barley a year. And in our plant, we can only go through 200, so we get to take the top tier of even that barley.
Wow. Do you want to talk a little bit about, varietal selection and farm selection, and maybe a little bit about heritage strains? I know on the distilling side, we're starting to see people go back to Golden Promise and Maris Otter and beer barley. Are we starting to see, even on the brewing side, more return to some of those more characterful heritage strains rather than just, the most modern barley strains available?
I have seen some people go look backwards in the barley catalog, if you will. What I've seen more of is we're super blessed to have a barley breeding program in Lacombe, and another one in Saskatoon, and another one in Manitoba. And in Lacombe, we actually have a barley seed bank. So I think they have 2,000 past varieties of barley. And so we can take some of those older varieties that had maybe some nice flavor attributes, and we can breed those into some of the more modern varieties as well that are going to be more, give us better agronomics. So going to grow better in our region, in our soil, and in our climate. A while back, I was doing some research on barley, and I went to the University of Oregon, and there was a barley breeding program there, and they were crossbreeding everything with Maris Otter to try and find, to try to convert Maris Otter from a winter barley into a spring barley, which is what grows better in our area. And that project was called A Field of Otters. And they had some success with that, and they shared some of the most promising lines of that with Lacombe, and Lacombe's been crossing that with some of their stuff. And they've been doing some sensory testing on that. So that means brewing it at the scale of like malting it and brewing it at the scale of one bottle, and then having a very important group of people sit around and taste that one bottle of beer and see if it has those flavor attributes of Maris Otter or whatever historical variety that they want to pull through.
That's a ludicrous amount of work, and also you're all giant nerds for the Field of Otters. Like, that's so geeky, but I love it. Let's move on. We spent so much time on the Red Hart here. Let's jump on to the craft beer Commonwealth. Pardon me.
Okay.
Now this is going to be a really bit of a story. Yeah, go ahead. Morgan, I'd like to apologize to everyone for tonight. I texted Aaron what my screen looks like. Aaron, you should throw that picture I sent you up on the stream, because however bad it is for the folks at home, it's so much worse for me.
No, they get it.
Did they get this?
They get this.
With everything fading in and out of existence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good. That's
it's
wonderful.
Like an acid trip.
Yeah, it really is. It's
I don't know how to turn that off. I don't know how it came. And I don't know how to turn it off.
Well, it's the laptop. The
It's
laptop
not the
is banned.
laptop.
The laptop is
in
banned.
curse.
Banned.
Jeez.
Banned. Thank you, all 11 of you who've stuck with us.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm shocked that you have, because this is not our finest hour.
Yeah.
Welcome to Andrew Hilton's darkest hour. Everything has gone to hell, and we don't even know why. Yeah,
so Aaron, I think it's my fault. I was trying to switch the speaker view, and then I hit something like together mode, and that's when it really started getting weird.
Oh, so this is Matt's, this is, how did you turn
Matt's
on
fault.
the forest scene?
Yeah.
How did you
Yeah,
turn
how do we get the forest scene? How do we get the
you turn the
3
forest
tiers of
scene
guests?
on? Who turned that on, and how the hell does it go off? Actually, don't turn it off, because it'll destroy everything. You got to leave it on now.
We just gotta run with it.
You just got to run with it.
We got our weird Buckaroo Bonsai adventures in the fifth dimension nonsense going around right now, but that's fine. So, Craft Beer Commonwealth. Matt, why don't you walk us through this? Because I hear you went to China to buy a malting system and kind of bought a brewery by accident. So how did all this come about?
Did you want to field this one, Morgan, or do you want me to roll with it?
Yeah, I can help. So the story goes that the folks available to go to China to look at the malting system and actually verify it in person before it was brought back to Canada. We sent Joe, so our maltster, and John, his father. And while they were there, they were convinced to buy a small 5-hec, I think, brewery as well, just in case. What if beer started to be brewed as well, and it makes sense to have the malt and a small system on site. And over the years, Joe is so busy doing all of the malting and helping out on the farm that there's not a lot of time to brew. So he sold off his homebrew equipment. And as part of Craft Beer Commonwealth, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, as part of their opening, there was a way for the equipment to have a good home and actually get used. So I'll let Matt take over for Craft Beer Commonwealth.
Yeah. So like Morgan was saying, the brewery wasn't getting enough use in our shop. And Craft Beer Commonwealth presented an opportunity where we could still accomplish all the things that we wanted to with our brewery. Namely, we want to get lots of guest brewers on there, trying our malts, getting really experimental. We want to have it available to old college students. As part of their brewmaster program, they have to do a beer to market. So some of you might have been lucky enough to stumble across some of those bottles, either right from the brewery or they do get shipped around occasionally. And so it was just a project that fit quite well with us. And so we got to work with our friends at Blindman and our friends at Red Hart on this project. And they're the guys that are really leading the bus. It's just been phenomenal. Been learning a lot more about the brewing process from them and the business of brewing from them. And we have a absolutely fantastic manager and a co-owner in there, in Ryan and Jocelyn. And the location is just unreal. We're set up in the Gasoline Alley Indoor Farmers Market. So it's the first year-round farmers market in Red Deer.
And now it's frozen. So Morgan, you can pick right up from there. Indoor Farmers Market, first one in Red Deer. Go nuts.
Yeah, so it's actually very exciting. Gasoline Alley is known for being a whole bunch of gas stations and fast food right along the highway. And there's now a farmers market that actually has tons of local vendors.
We got a nice patio in there.
Sorry about you froze. So we kind of had Morgan going there for a minute. Oh, tonight's just
He's back now.
Yeah, I know he's back. It's
He's
just
back, okay.
it's just a disaster. The whole thing.
We'll see if audio works a little bit better.
I can't even keep it up. I can't even pretend this is kind of going according to plan. It's all gone so horribly wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll shut Matt's audio off. Morgan,
All right,
continue.
Morgan, please continue.
So at the farmers market, there's also at the end we have a whole corner which is Birdie Coffee and Craft Beer Commonwealth. So there's an outdoor patio. There's they're kind of surrounded by a whole bunch of food areas. It's like a small food court, but in a farmer's market, and everything is local and really delicious. And Taco Monster is my favorite if you're in the area. Great tacos. But there's also an upstairs, so there's tons of room. The coffee roaster for Birdie Coffee is actually right around the corner, so you can actually see it. And usually you can smell the coffee from my own roasting. So yeah, it's a beautiful area. It's very cool, and it's a collaboration and collective from a whole bunch of Central Alberta breweries that now can have a guest brewer or a brewery come in to collab on this system inside the farmers market.
So it's very much a collective idea. It's, Commonwealth's a fun term, but it's a brewing collective. It's a set of brewing equipment that if you come in with a brilliant idea and a head full of dreams and Aaron's tech support, you can just make some beer. Don't even, really.
Exactly, something akin to that. So the Belgian blonde that you're drinking has our Vienna malt in it, and then they're actually using hops from Hardhells, which is just east of Red Deer, so very close, very local. And I am looking up which specific hop it is. Bitter Gold.
Okay, I was going to get something like Spalter or Strisel Spalter for something like this. But yeah, it tastes very appropriately spicy and earthy and vegetal for like a Belgian sort of hop. Yeah, this is very pleasant.
Cool.
And yeah, this isn't something that's sold really anywhere apart from the local area, much like Red Hart, which I believe actually on the back of the can they say it's brewed with Blindman, which I assume means they brewed it and they canned it at Blindman probably, or maybe brewed it on Blindman's equipment. But like this is at a farmer's market. It's not sold anywhere else. Like you drove this to Calgary for me, and then I picked it up. Like you just don't see this around. We have a little bit to sell, but honestly, after how hot it was this weekend, I will not speak to having anything on our beer shelves at all. We're at a bloody Jamrock. We haven't been out of Jamrock since we started carrying it. It's been so damn hot. It's ridiculous. Okay,
yes.
And so speaking of things that were very well organized, yeah, let's talk about what's coming up next week. When after I have drop kicked Aaron's dumpster laptop into space, and we can do a proper beer tasting. This will be featuring Grant from Copper in Theory because he just loves Steel and Oak so damn much. This is a love story for Grant because it's his favorite brewery, and we want him to join us. And let's be fair, this is his favorite brewery. He owns how many Steel and Oak t-shirts now?
I'm gonna guess like 7.
Yeah, that sounds
between
about right.
7 and 15. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a big range.
It's a lot.
Okay, that's so many t-shirts. I don't even think I own that many shirts. For long-time viewers, you probably know I own like 6. So we're gonna be featuring these 2, and then 2 more from his portfolio. Strathcona has a brand new Love Buzz, which is a strawberry guava sour. And then this one really holds my attention. This is by Ile Sauvage. This is their Bremo, which is a sour IPA, which should be really, really interesting. So next week, some of Grant's beers, but really it's a Steel and Oak tasting because we're just going to hand this over to Grant and just let him go because this is fun. So that's our tasting next week. Do we have Matt? Vaguely?
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah, you're back?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
There we go. So we are on to beer number 4.
Because you're just putting these beers into the forest.
We really are. Like we're just throwing it out into the weeds at this point. Yeah, it's. Well, we don't have video of Matt, but nothing makes sense anymore. Just roll with it, Aaron.
Here, I can try to get video back.
I think he's behind that bush.
Wait.
Oh God, tonight's gone so wrong.
All up. Just put it all up.
Yep, just throw it all up. It
there
literally
he is.
doesn't matter anymore, so just do it.
We do have him.
Yep, good.
He's here.
Wonderful. Great.
Good.
Matt, save us. Talk us through the Trouble Monk Market Garden Coffee Ale, please.
Yeah, you bet. So Trouble Monk, they came out of the gates really strong. They had some great beers. They were picking up. Well, they won a World Beer Cup award with one of their core lineups from the start, and picking up all kinds of hardware elsewhere. And the lineup was good, and it's held steady for a long time. But they've come out with a lot more seasonal releases lately. To keep the locals, give them a reason to keep coming back to the tap room. And this is from that series there. And this one features, so I should also mention that Trouble Monk is also in the Gasoline Alley Indoor Farmers Market, as is Darkwoods Brewing. And then I also have to tell you that Darkwoods Brewing also does some coffee roasting. So this beer
I really want to try some Darkwoods Brewing now.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. And you got to go to Innisfail because Sonia and I went there yesterday and had the pulled pork sandwich. They just started doing food at the brewery, and it was unreal. It was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, now we're getting really derailed.
No, we even had somebody just walk in the store. Thank God it was Nigel, but like we just had the back door open and someone came in, and Aaron and I are like, oh God, everything more has gone wrong. Oh no, I'm so sorry, everyone.
We're good.
Anyway, please keep going, Matt. We're fine. Push
through.
Yeah, no, we can't pretend anymore, Aaron.
So the Alberta craft brew scene is all about collaborations, and this beer falls well in line with that. So it's got some red shed malts in there. It's got some Darkwoods coffee, and it's brewed by the very talented people over at Trouble Monk.
Quite like this.
But what's it?
Sorry, go ahead, Morgan.
What's it taste like?
Well, I haven't tasted it yet. I get the big coffee note on the nose. Like there's a little bit of greenness, maybe from hops or maybe from very gently roasted coffee, and then the overpowering, like big, powerful, roasty coffee notes come through right over top of all of that. And I normally would think, oh well, it's a coffee beer. It's gonna be a stout or a porter or something dark. I kind of like that this is so pale. I finally learned to actually like chilled coffee or iced coffee this year. It's been a long road for me, and this kind of fills that bill. I can see this.
It is such a cool beer. I feel like Kylo and I talked about this. I'm a nerd about coffee as well, and this beer is Honduran Coffee, and they've done a cold brew system, but with beer instead of water. So essentially what they did, they ground the coffee, put it in a keg, brewed a beer, put the beer on top of the coffee grinds and left it overnight, pumped it through a tank, and then did the same thing the next night and the same thing a third time. So it's been cold brewed with coffee grounds 3 times to try to balance beer and coffee flavors. And reading about it, I want to drink this so badly. Reading about it, it's talking about raisin and date, but also hazelnut, which I love. It sounds so good.
It's so good. Like, I would have thought with something like this that the coffee notes would either completely overwhelm the beer or they'd come off astringent and sharp and thin, but they're so... Fluffy is the wrong word, but it's the only one that comes to mind. They're so gentle and so mouthfilling. It's coffee with cream without any cream at all. It's a really neat trick that it does on the palate.
Yeah,
Neat.
you were saying fluffy, and I was thinking like a cake, like almost like a coffee cake or a carrot cake, without getting into that like pastry stout or pastry beer kind of realm at all. Yeah, very nice, well balanced.
Ooh, it sounds so good.
I really like this.
Neat. And I did look up the hops for it. You're looking at Mount Hood and Hallertau Blanc. So
now we've tasted 3 beers that we can't get here. You know, We have Red Hart that we don't get at all. We have crappier Commonwealth we don't get. We don't see very many seasonals for Trouble Monk. What else is kind of happening in Central Alberta? Like, you can only bring so much. What do you feel sad you left behind? What are we all missing down here that we didn't get to taste tonight?
The original list for breweries to grab was extensive. It was essentially every Central Alberta brewery. And then I tried to narrow it down by saying it had to have red shed malt in it, which surprisingly did little to nothing. So when I looked at the beers, I also looked at things that would be good for hot weather and things that were interesting. Red Hart makes an English mild that's also very cool. It might be available in Connect, but past that, I don't think their other beers are. I looked at Siding 14. I looked at Darkwoods, but they were just opening. So I think like this past week was their official grand opening. So we could do a second version that maybe has some of these other breweries.
And way
Cocktail
fewer
does some really
technical
interesting
problems.
beers.
Yes.
Oh no.
No, we're going to be fine. Keep going. Sorry, I was just jumping in there because, oh my.
Hey.
Did Morgan
Positive
freeze?
vibes
No,
only.
positive
I'd,
vibes only? Okay, fine.
I
Positive
chime
vibes.
in with Sawback and Belly Hop are the other ones, and Something Brewing. That kind of rounds out the other breweries that are in the city. Sawback is doing amazing things. Their hazy blonde is what you want to be drinking on the go. Belly Hop is if you're making the road trip, it's you have to stop there. It's just an absolutely fantastic tap room to sit down in for a while. Most of the beers are going to be under 5%, but are still going to be packed with flavor, which is a testament to Matt Friesen's brewing skills and the big catalog that he brings with him from homebrewing.
Cool. Well, thank you both so much. This has been certainly an experience. I appreciate you both for bearing with us.
Hey.
And to paraphrase Kent Brockman for The Simpsons, I can't work under these conditions. Good night. And good night to all of you at home as well. This has been Kyle with Andrew Hilton. And let us, make sure to share blame with Aaron, as always.
Please send
this has been fun.
complaints to
It's certainly been an experience. We will see you all later. Hopefully at least one or two of you after this fiasco next week. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it so much for joining us.
Wait, they got something to say.
Yeah,
Sign
something to say
off?
here?
Quick sign off.
Quick sign off from both of you.
Isn't today like the last day of COVID? So we just had to really get it into that video call and explore all the options, I guess. So.
We definitely had to explore all of the buttons we shouldn't have pushed in Skype. Yes.
Yeah, learning lessons. Thank you so much for having me. It was a good time. It was good beers and entertaining, and great to chat with you.
Thanks, Matt. Morgan, good night. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
All right, Aaron. Let's put this thing out of its misery.
Put this horse out of it.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
time to put the animal down. It's time.
Okay, fine.
Good night, everybody.
You did say goodnight, didn't you?
I did say good night. No, I don't think there's really any saving this.
Editing.
Editing.
Lots of editing.
Good luck with the editing. Good luck editing this acid trip fiasco.